May I begin by saying that as a new immigrant to this country, I'm amazed that it's keeping its shit together. When you take immigrants from all over the world, from Yemen to Poland and further seas, from different religious backgrounds, from different political backgrounds, I'm amazed this country didn't collapse a long time ago. The amazing national experiment that was the ingathering of exiles to the land of Israel should never have succeeded and should have crumbled under the weight of its own diversity. Instead, we see that it survives. We see that it survives and that it thrives. And it thrives because there's a common sense binding everyone in this country, a common discourse of who we are and why we are and what we are doing here and why this is our home, and a common sense that we need to fight for our home because we are here for a reason and we're not in Berlin just because the Milky is cheaper or whatever, because we're all part of one greater project and this project matters. And we say therefore we have a special responsibility. We have a responsibility for the whole of Israel in the way that we want to see the nation going forward. We agree, as liberals, that decisions should be made by those who they most affect. The problem is that side proposition has offered us a complete cop-out. Because what they've offered is that they're willing to give up on a vision of a liberal Israel. They're willing to stop fighting for a liberal Israel because they're going to surrender vast swathes of the country to backwards and regressive groups which will be able to operate their own little wet dreams of shtetls going back however way back, instead of deciding that we're going to fight because we care about them. I say that in contradiction to the proposition, I'm not willing to sacrifice the dignity of a woman who has to sit on the back of a bus so that Michael can marry Yoni. I say that both of them are my fights. I say that the fight of the Haredi woman is my fight as a Jewish man in Israel. I say that the fight of a gay Arab is my fight as a Jewish man living in Israel. And we are not willing to give up on these principles.
Clarification?
No. Side proposition has said that they hope that somehow through extreme segregation in Israel, through a policy of effective self-selecting ghettoization, we're going to be able to promote dialogue. We say the opposite. Just a moment. We say that when you encourage communities to self-segregate, to create their own separate spheres, you create separate dialogues, separate spheres, and it's going to be more difficult for us to reach a common national discourse of the values we care about. Go, Michael.
Are you in favor of separation of synagogue and state, yes or no? It's not clear.
Wow, that's a really major question. It's impossible to answer in 20 seconds, especially when basic questions about what it means to be a Jew matter for how we determine immigration policy, for example. The cutoff isn't as clear as it is in other countries. Nice try. No, I'm not taking two clarifications. So the central case, no, nice try. Yiddish akot. So what I want to do today is advance my central case is about the danger of national fragmentation. The danger that when we put our hands up and say, you know what, Jerusalem, Neibrak, you want to be regressive, fine, as long as I have my gay rights and my marijuana in Tel Aviv, we'll be fine. We're against the creation. We say that Israel is already deeply divided, deeply polarized, already contains communities that are to an extent self-contained and don't interact with each other other than on the questions that influence all of them together, like the questions of religion and state. This is one of the few spheres in Israeli discourse where we're still talking to each other. We say get rid of that, and Israel is bound to split even further into separation, further into ghettoization, which we believe is bad for national unity. We believe is bad for our existence as a Jewish people in the land of Israel. A couple of points here on the danger of national fragmentation. One, we give up on the idea of having a shared national discourse. We give up on having a shared national discourse about what it means to be a Jew and what it means to be an Israeli. No. When a Haredi person says, this is how I interpret what it means to be a Jew in the land of Israel, and as a secular Jew I say I disagree with you, the moment a motion like this passes is a point at which we don't need to talk to each other about that anymore. It's a point at which the Haredi man doesn't need to listen to secular ideas about the great Jewish Enlightenment in Europe. It's a point at which I don't need to listen to their fears about assimilation and whatnot, because we know that we can live our own separate existences without having to learn from each other, without having to be enriched from each other. We say it stunts progress within what we want to be a liberal democracy, when on the most fundamental questions of identity and national existence, major groups have no need to talk to each other anymore. Second point on this, minorities within minorities. We've received something of a generalization from side proposition, saying, oh, as if the groups are all homogeneous and can decide the ultra-Orthodox want women at the back of the bus, fine. You know what? The woman doesn't want to sit on the back of a bus. And even though we might have some moving around the country, where let's say someone who lives in an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood decides he's secular, wants to move to Tel Aviv, the woman who's married to the Haredi man and has 8 children doesn't have that luxury of packing her bags and moving to Tel Aviv. I say that as a secular Jew in this country, her fight is my fight. When my representatives stand in the Knesset, I want them to speak up for her rights. The problem is, the moment we say you can have segregated buses in Bnei Brak, but you can't have segregated buses in Tel Aviv, there is no one who speaks up for the Haredi woman in the public sphere. She is left to the devices of the regressive and powerful forces within our own society who do not seek her own good. Closing.
Are you counterpropping, and do you support making Israel a complete liberal democracy, or are you just saying we should remain...
I'm not counterpropping. Funnily enough, for a secular, I'm in favor of the status quo. I'm in favor of a status quo in which we have a joint national discourse where your fight is my fight, where we're all in the same boat together, and we all sink or swim together. Third point on this, so yes, women, the same also goes, for example, for gay groups and other minorities who feel oppressed within societies that will be able to enforce their will without anyone, without marriage, without anyone standing up and speaking for their rights. Third point, you create a situation essentially with the extreme segmentation within Israeli society where vast swathes of the country no longer feel like home. From a position where we ingather the exiles of the land of Israel out of a sense that this land is our home, we create a situation in which vast areas of the population say, that part of the country is off limits to me. That part of the country is not my home because they don't respect who I am, because they have no interest in even engaging me with a dialogue about why it is that we need to live together. Essentially, we create a situation where the Zionist person living in Tel Aviv says, the only part of this country that I feel at home at is Tel Aviv. I say no. I say I want him fighting for his existence in the whole of this country. I want him fighting for his right to feel at home, and for his right to feel comfortable, and for his right to be a free man, to be a free people in his own land. I'm so proud to oppose. Thank you.